Joe Kleen, teach the world to sing. Iowa weather could be cruel, and March tended to be tempestuous. Midway through the month, the mercury had only managed to climb above 45 once, and most days had begun in the teens and barely crept to the 30s. But tomorrow, the forecasters predicted a low above freezing, and come next Thursday, the forecast called for 50s. Joe was skeptically optimistic about next week's forecast, as his 3 years in Iowa had taught him not to put too much steed in the prognostications of weatherman Joe Winters. Hey, he thought, at least we haven't had any tornadoes touch down. Today's March 14th freezing fog would no doubt dissipate under the predicted 40-degree high, but for now, pea soup reigned. 3 years spent in Iowa had conditioned the Kleen boys, fourth grader Atticus and second grader Patrick, to expect to cycle from home to Nixon Elementary with their father Joe, but the early morning fog that rolled in late stymied that plan. "Guys," Joe declared, looking out the broad expanse of picture window that dominated the first floor family room. "Fog's rolled in. Can't see the farmhouse, so it looks like we'll be hoofing it." "You said we were riding," Patrick objected. "I did, but we're not. Can you see the farmhouse?" Patrick, 7 weeks shy of his 8th birthday, pressed his nose against the plate glass and squinted. His desire to see the white farmhouse he knew lay a tenth of a mile northward, expressing itself with his answer, "Yeah, I think so." Cedar Rapids' 2-mile distance bus policy had surprised the Kleens, as both Joe and Misty had expected a school busing limit of 1 mile. Upon learning that living 1.95 miles from Nixon excluded them from free busing, Joe opted to ride or walk the boys to school and then continue on to Northtown Cycling and Fitness where he worked rather than pay an annual $1,000 bus fee. Northtown, like many snowbelt cycling shops, tended to have a very busy season between May and August and be super slow from Christmas through St. Patrick's Day. Joe, after investing a lot of time volunteering at Nixon's during the boys' first 2 years as Bobcats, had become certified to substitute teach, a circumstance that fit well with the bike shop's cyclical labor needs. The 2000-2001 school year marked a return to the classroom for Joe after a dozen-year hiatus, and he enjoyed working with Nixon's staff members and getting to know the student body. "Wow," Joe replied, shaking his head at Patrick's self-serving subterfuge. As Grandma would say, "Where do you expect to go when you die? What's the rule?" "If we can't see the farmhouse and we can't ride our bikes," Atticus said dejectedly. "Correct," Joe exclaims. "You think I like walking any better than you? I still have to trudge to work after I leave. I'd much rather ride, but it's just not safe, even cutting through neighborhoods. Come on, get your stuff and get moving, or else you'll be late for chorus." Both Atticus and Patrick were in their 3rd years at Nixon Elementary, and Hank Meyer, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade music teacher, headed the Bobcat Choir for students in 4th and 5th grade. Atticus, whose favorite activities included reading, drawing, and singing, asked to join the Bobcat Choir in the Kleens after confirming that Joe and Patrick could spend the before-school hour in the library reading and been happy to oblige. Choir rehearsal, with its twice-a-week, 1-hour before-school obligation, had been easy to accommodate. Joe tended to substitute in Nixon's specials classrooms, art, music, and phys ed, as well as the school's special ed classrooms, and he'd come to know Hank Meyer fairly well, enjoying both his droll sarcasm and dedication to his students. During the boys' first year at Nixon, Joe had been exiting the school after volunteering with some students who needed extra attention with reading when Hank expressed his appreciation for Joe's volunteer work. Joe said, "Glad to do it, and reading's close to my heart. My dyslexia wasn't diagnosed until I turned 10, so working with struggling readers is especially dear to me." "You're dyslexic?" Hank asked. "I've never known anyone who was dyslexic before." "Well," Joe replied, elongating the word, "we're kind of like homosexuals. We're everywhere. People just don't know it." Hank's face had paled as his smile dimmed, but his cordiality remained. "Well, thank you so much for what you do. We all really appreciate it." Later that month, Joe had mentioned the incident to special education teacher Carmen Dixon, who had responded with, "You did not! Joe, why?" Hank works very hard to fly under the radar concerning his personal life, and I don't blame him. We are in Iowa, after all. "Yeah," Joe said, shrugging. "Eastern Iowa. This isn't Stephen King territory." "Well, just keep that to yourself, okay? Hank's been discriminated against in the past, and we don't need to rile anybody up." "No worries. Secret's safe with me, though why he thinks he has to keep it a secret is beyond me." "Good. Just do it," Carmen responded. Joe had been true to his word and over the ensuing years had come to enjoy and respect Hank even more. Grabbing his own day pack, Joe rounded up the boys, exited their home, and broke routine by heading straight for Council Street rather than winding through his neighborhood. Council Street was fairly busy and, as it had no sidewalks until the Kleens traveled southward a half mile, Joe took point as they marched along, facing traffic on the gravel shoulder that hugged the road. After less than 5 minutes, a car passes from behind and then pulls off on the shoulder on the southbound lane. The driver's window rolls down and Hank Meyer's head appears.
"Hey, Joe, hey, guys," Hank declared. "Foggy out here. I'd offer you a ride, but my Miata only seats two. You want me to at least give Atticus a ride?"
Joe hesitated as he assessed the situation. Hank taking Atticus to choir practice would solve multiple issues simultaneously. First, it would ensure that Atticus arrived on time for choir practice, and second, it would allow Patrick and Joe to meander through neighborhoods, a far safer route in the heavy fog than on the shoulder of a busy road. Hank's offer of assistance was a godsend, and yet Joe hesitated. Why? Why the hesitation in sending his 10-year-old son Atticus alone in a car with Hank without another adult present? Sure, a little hesitation concerning any one-on-one unsupervised travel with an adult and a 10-year-old was understandable, but the reason for Joe's hesitation hit him like a nightstick poke to his solar plexus, as Joe realized that his fear was heightened because Joe knew Hank was gay. The ingrained prejudice with which Joe had been inculcated from birth was creating a visceral fear for his son regarding his friend Hank, despite having known the man for 3 years. Joe's face blushed with shame. "Hey, great," Joe declared, scanning the road left and right before ushering his boys across the street, crossing to the passenger side of Hank's car and opening the door for Atticus. As Atticus slipped off his backpack and climbed in, Joe said, "Buckle up, buddy. Hank, thank you so much. I'll feel a lot better with Patrick walking on these neighborhood sidewalks rather than along Council. Thanks again." "No problem," Hank replied. "See you at school?" "Yep. Have fun, guys," Joe added, feeling disappointed in himself. As Hank drove off, Joe remembered his conversation with Carmen Dixon, his insistence that prejudice against homosexuals was a thing of the past, that acceptance and equality ruled the land. As Joe stifled a moan, Patrick looked up to him. "Dad, are you okay?" Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, buddy. Love you. Love you too. Can we ride to school tomorrow?" "Yeah, probably. I would think so. Let's get through today and we can worry about tomorrow." "Well, you're the one who tells me to plan ahead." "Right you are. Eyeing the ball, right, kiddo?" "Right, Dada," Pat replies with a laugh.